And we welcome you back to another installment of the Ollie Reed Sports Podcast. You're giving you the news and notes around the world of high school basketball across the Mountain State and beyond, and college basketball in the Mountain State as well. But today we're not talking about college. We're talking about high school hoops across the Mountain State because Mr. Michael Griffith, who is here joining me from the Dominion Post, these are the best 2 weeks of the year in high school basketball. Girls State Tournament, and wait a minute. An error occurred on X. This is usually temporary. Wait a moment. Well, it looks like we're not going live on Twitter, but it looks like we're live on YouTube here. So we're just gonna go with it. We're just gonna roll. We're just gonna roll with it, guys. All right, let's just remove that there. There we go. Awesome. All right, so hopefully we'll stream on YouTube. I'm going to double check real quick to see if we're still live on YouTube there on my phone, just to make sure that we're secure there. I can't really tell.
I think we are.
I'm going to check real quick. Oh, yeah, I see it. Okay, we're good. We're good. All right, we're good on Twitter. So we're not live on Twitter. Sorry for everybody. I'll go ahead and post the link on it here for those of you who are listening on Apple Podcast, Spotify. Sorry for that little delay there, but we are back. But like I was saying before, these are the best 2 weeks of the year in high school basketball in West Virginia because we have the Girls State Tournament this week, along with Boys Regionals, which I will be covering the rest of the week here, while Mr. Michael Griffith will be down in Charleston covering the Girls State Tournament, covering obviously the Morgantown Mohegans and the University High Hawks, and Boys State Tournament on March 18th next week through March 22nd. I mean, it's just the best time of the year, and I just can't believe that March Madness is here. I feel like the season just flew by.
Yeah, it definitely has. If I don't know, it felt like yesterday we were talking on the first podcast, right, that I was on doing our little preview, and a lot has happened, and there's been a lot of good games, and a lot of surprises, a lot of non-surprises. It's been a really good season. I mean, some teams that have really battled and, shown that they can make some noise, and other teams who we knew that would be at the top that have held their ground. And, come Charleston, there's really not a lot of teams that you can look at and kind of point your finger at and say that they're going to be the definitive winner. It's going to be battle down there when we get to the Civic Center for the boys tournament and the girls tournament. So.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and the Boys State Tournament obviously is going to be a big one. And I remember last year I said that this was probably the most competitive season that I've ever covered the sport. I feel like I'm going to eat my own words with this boys tournament just to see what's going to happen for my predictions. But yes, as the title says, we are going to be talking about the regional bracket. That's what we're going to start off with the regional bracket for the boys tournament here before the boys tournament begins. And like I've mentioned before, if you guys don't know, I have my predictions up on the Blue Chips Network website here. I don't have a link to it, but you can just see it on it's posted. It's pinned on my Twitter, so if you guys want to check it out, you can. But as of right now here, we're going to check out the regional brackets. Starting off with Region 1, I'm just going to mention the semifinal matchups here with Preston High School, which you were at Preston High School last Friday for the Wheeling Park game, and Preston ended up winning 52-49. And I see here that Buchanan Upshur beat John Marshall 49-45. And Tuesday, March 11th, would be the Quad A Championships with Preston at Morgantown, which I will be in attendance for that game, while Mr. Michael Griffith will be at the Buchanan Upshur at UHS matchup. First things first, we're going to talk about University and BU. These two teams play each other before. They're familiar with each other. we've had some battles with University have had some battles with the Buccaneers in the past. Was the Buccaneers actually upset University High School a few seasons ago? I'm trying to remember what year it was.
I think it was 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
2 years ago, yeah, because I do remember they got knocked off. It was the sectional semis, wasn't it, or was it
Yeah,
the?
it was something like that. It was the first game of the sectionals for sure.
Yeah, and so this is not this is a familiar face for UHS, and I think that they'll be ready for McKenna Upshur. I don't really know too much about BU. I've only watched them play one time. Obviously, they have Jaron Westfall, who's been their top player.
Yeah.
And I can speak a lot for University High School, which I might as well talk about them now. University is a pretty good ball club. They've had some solid wins and against Parkersburg South, beat Parkersburg South twice. They obviously have a lot of good guards. They're a really young team. I mean, you only have a few seniors, and Zach Demidovich and Chase Adams, I believe, are their only two seniors, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And honestly, recently, Chase has actually been coming off the bench, and that's just he just had a little bit of a shooting slump, but he can come out of it. He does a lot more for the team than just put the ball in the hole for sure. And which is crazy to think they only start one senior right now. But honestly, that the game that they played, let's see, I think it was on February, like the last day of February, they played each other, which was not long ago. Buchanan Upshur was winning that game after 3 quarters. And then UHS ran away with it and ended up winning by 13 points, I think, or something like that. So,
yeah,
I mean, that's something to remember. And, that's definitely something that UHS will probably have in the back of their minds. You mentioned Jaron Westfall. He is probably an all-state consideration at this point. I mean, he's averaging 17 points, 9 rebounds, and almost 5 assists. So, he does a lot. He's 6'6". I talked to Joe Schmidl literally today about the game, and he named Jaron Westfall by name and said we have to make sure that we contain him and that he does not, take over the game because he absolutely can. And UHS will have to hit shots. In the past, like you said, when Buchanan upset them a few years ago, I mean, I think UHS may have shot 20% in that game on offense. So that they have to avoid doing that as well. But they'll be at home. They'll enjoy being on Baker's Ridge. Like you said, nobody on that team except for Chase, obviously, when he was with Trinity, nobody on that team has been to Charleston except for the coaches, right? None of the players. Like, this is a good opportunity for them with a young team. Go to Charleston this year, get the experience, bring it back next year, and who knows what could happen. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And anything can happen in March, so I'm not really because obviously I have University in my predicted seedings in the state tournament to knock off the Buccaneers, but I still believe the Pirates could still pull off an upset. They are capable of doing it. They have done it before, and I have a feeling they can do it again. But University, I just think they're pretty deep this year. And they're pretty young. They have a good coaching staff who has been in the state tournament, a state championship coach in Joe Smithel, like you've met. And they're really athletic. I mean, Glenn Brown he's really impressed me throughout this year. I mean, I know he's more of a football guy, but on the court, he is a floor general. He can drive to the basket at will. He's a great defender. KK Lewis, also a football guy, but he's also really athletic, loves to take it to the rack and loves to get those Thunder slam dunks to hype his team up and build momentum down the stretch. Zach Demidovich, who is a senior, he's probably been their best leader on the court. Luke Byer, a kid I didn't even know at the time before the season started, really surprised me in this year. And then Eli Kerpansky, I knew about him because I watched him excuse me, during AAU basketball for the Hawks, and getting to see him play over the spring and summer, and I just really loved the way he has come through. So yeah, I mean, this University High School team, I mean, and I remember I said it was state tournament or bust, but I think for this University High School, I mean, it's obviously go to state tournament, but I also think they can also win in Charleston.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch them for sure. And you said they're deep, and when you get down in Charleston on that big floor and you're running up and down, you'll definitely need some of those players to come off the bench and make an impact. So.
All right, and then obviously I haven't seen Preston yet, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm going to the Morgantown Preston game, is because Preston High School. I haven't seen that team play, and pretty much since I played them back in 2018. But they have done pretty good. They did pretty good this year. They've done pretty good this year. I know Coach Forbes and assistant coach Mike Baldy. Shout out to Coach Baldy. They've done they've done a pretty good job over there. Over at in Kingwood, and I just hope for the best for that team in the future. And I know it's tough going up against the 3-time defending state champion Morgantown Mohegans in the regional championship, but I have a feeling this will be a good experience for the Knights moving forward.
Yeah, you're right. I was at that game the other night when they played Wheeling Park, and it was probably one of the best atmospheres I've been at so far, aside from like Morgantown Spring Mills earlier in the season. But you're right. I mean, Bucky Forbes has been there for a few years, and they've gone from like 1 win to 7 wins to 12 wins now. And it's like, that's definitely progress in the right direction. They're also a young team. They do have some seniors that they'll miss next year. Aaron White and Tristan Smith, and I think Caden Baktel, he's a senior as well. But they will bring back a lot of experience. Easton Hayes is a really good junior guard. Slayton Manco, he's the quarterback, really, breakout quarterback in football this season. But he can play basketball as well. He's a really good defender, really smart on the court. He made a play the other night at the end of the game. They were down by 3, or they were up by 3, and he was at the free throw line. He missed both free throws, but on the rebound, the Wheeling Park player grabbed it and Slayton stole it right out from his hands. So he's that kind of player. They'll be good for the future. That whole region, really, Region 1 has taken. I know they lost Bridgeport, and they lost Brook, but they took a big step this year. I mean, Buchanan, like you said, was really good this year. Preston was improved this year, and then John Marshall only lost to Buchanan by 4 points the other night. So
yep.
So yeah, and then you have Morgantown, Wheeling Park, and University. So yeah, that's a big region that took a step this year in Quad A for sure. So
yeah, absolutely, and obviously talking about Preston, as you mentioned, and then going against Morgantown High School. Morgantown, obviously, whenever everyone's predicting, Spring Mills is probably going to be the top dog, obviously, because they had all their players coming back. But I mentioned before early in the year to not sleep on Morgantown. And here we are, beginning of the year. It's 1-2 Morgantown, and it wasn't a series, but the teams have split a 1-1 in the year, with Spring Mills obviously taking the win at Morgantown the first meeting back in January, and then February 1st, Morgantown with the win over Spring Mills in the battle for the Spring House at the Greenbrier. And Morgantown High School here, if they make it to the state tournament, if they beat Preston and move on, this will be, I don't know, I can't think of the name, but I was just, like I was saying this morning, just the success that Dave Tallman has had at Morgantown. And he's only missed, and from what I can tell, he's only missed 2 seasons in the state tournament in his career at Morgantown High School as the head coach. His first year, whenever they lost to Parkersburg in that devastating, heartbreaking buzzer beater there. And that was whenever I was a freshman in high school. And then 2020, the COVID year, which Morgantown got knocked off by Wheeling Park and University in the semis and regionals. So, but yeah, Morgantown has had a lot of success, and I don't see them backing down against Spring Mills anytime soon. And because it's most likely going to be those two, but like I said, in March, anything can happen. But I do believe that Morgantown is most likely going to be back in that contention once again.
Yeah, you're right. And there's, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, there isn't one team that you can look at and say they're going to win. You know what I mean? It's going to be wide open, and even the 7, the 8 teams, like, they're going to be teams that can win games. I mean, University is a 17-win team, and people are talking about them being a 7 and an 8 seed even. You know what I mean? Like, when your 8th seed in a tournament has 17 wins, like, or 18 wins if they win tomorrow, right? I mean, that's pretty good. You know, I mean, like,
Yeah,
that's kind of crazy to think about. So, I mean, that's the girls this year. Washington, they're 18-4, and they're the 7th seed in the Quad A. So, that's what you're going to get nowadays with high school basketball in West Virginia at the best levels. You're going to have teams that are the last seed in the tournament, but they've won 18 games this year. I mean, that's just how it is. So, I definitely expect Morgantown to be, maybe there on Saturday playing, and maybe Spring Mills is their opponent. It's going to be a good tournament. I mean, you have so many good teams. George Washington and Spring Valley Park South has been streaky this year. They beat Morgantown, but they've lost to University twice, so they can win against anybody, lose against anybody. It's going to be a good tournament for sure.
absolutely. And moving on from Region 1, we got Region 2 here. We got Jefferson at Spring Mills, since Jefferson knocked off Hedgesville 45-28. And it's going to be Washington and Martinsburg in that EPAC region, Region 2, as Washington knocked off Musselman in a pretty close contest. Only won 62-58. But Washington, I think they do have some of their top players back now. Some people do have Washington knocking off Martinsburg, but I did watch Morgantown in person at that University High School game. Martinsburg can compete. I mean, they have a lot of athletes. Kashawn Cheek has been their top scorer all season long. Zion Agemandua is a really good forward, a kid that has majorly improved from last year, because I saw that kid play last year. I remember I watched him a couple of times in Charleston last year, and then obviously played at Morgantown, and then seeing this kid improve. I mean, he's really athletic, and then obviously Anthony Owuna. It's going to be tough, and especially a coach like Dave Rogers. Coach Rogers knows how to win. I mean, he's the winningest head coach in high school basketball in the state of West Virginia. So Martinsburg, Washington, that's definitely going to be, other than South Charleston and Beckley, which we'll get to in a minute, is probably going to be like one of the toughest regional games in the state.
Yeah, and Washington's just they're kind of another one of those teams that are just streaky, right? I mean, they beat University by double digits at the beginning of the season in Morgantown, so that was a really good win early in the year. And they have some players. I mean, they have some guys that can take over a game. Like, when they were playing University, they were shooting the lights out, if I can remember correctly. So, that's a if they get hot, they're a hard team to beat for anybody. So, and when you're doing one game to go on, one game or lose, like lose or go home, whatever, like, who knows what can happen. But like you mentioned Martinsburg, they do have some players, and if you don't contain Kashawn Cheek, you don't have a good chance, because he can go for 30 if you let him.
Oh yeah.
So for sure.
And then we got Region 3, as we're about to mention here. St. Albans and George Washington, the 4 and the 1 seed. Since the semifinal game, St. Albans knocked off Oak Hill 60-40. Beckley, Woodrow Wilson knocked off Riverside 89-58. Kind of expected this. GW, St. Albans, and Woodrow Wilson, South Charleston, which that game will be played at the South Charleston Athletic Center tomorrow night at 7 p.m. I don't know. I mean, we were talking about this last week, and it's like, I don't know. I honestly wish it can be those three that can make it, because, I mean, both GW, Beckley, and South Charleston both deserve to be. I mean, all three of those teams deserve to be in the state tournament, because they're just so good and they're very well coached. But only the sad thing is only two of those teams can advance, and GW can mostly advance against St. Albans, but it's going to be either Woodrow Wilson or Beckley. I mean, or South Charleston.
Yeah, hopefully Zion Hawthorne didn't play against Riverside, so hopefully he'll be back. I would hope that he would at least try to give it a go, especially against a team like South Charleston. And Zion has been playing really well at the end of the back half of the season. But he was out of the game, so we'll see if he's healthy. I would think that if he's any kind of close to being healthy, he's going to try to play. So that'll be a big deal and something to watch for tomorrow night as far as going into that game. And you mentioned George Washington, St. Albans. You and I sat together and watched them play Morgantown the other night, and it was a good game, and they competed really well for 3 quarters. But you saw the wear and tear that can happen when you play Morgantown, right? And then
Yep.
Morgantown won the fourth quarter, 23-8. So George Washington, I expect them to be in Charleston, get a win tomorrow night. But when they get to Charleston, they're going to be another team that needs to make sure that they can stay consistent, and which they've done this year. But except for that one game, and when you're playing the top teams, in March, the fourth quarter is where you make your money, so you got to make sure that's where you're playing your best ball. So yeah, there'll be a team to watch going forward.
Yes, sir. And, that's how Charleston Woodrow Wilson game is going to be tough. I mean, hopefully Zion Hawthorne will be healthy. But they also have a lot of good options. Jalen Walton, Kobe Dillon, who's in my opinion, one of the best sharpshooters in the state, other than Parker Schramm from Williamstown. And South Charleston has a lot of athletic dudes. They've had some good quality wins. They even beat a team from Boyd County, Kentucky, who has a kid that has like some Power 5 interest. So, I mean, South Charleston is a pretty good team to watch for. Roman Kellum, Zane Saunders, Shoddy Williams, and all those guys. I mean, they'll be able to. They're definitely going to compete. So, and especially with that home court advantage that they have. And speaking of someone who is trying to get healthy, as Navi Hewitt from Parkersburg South, who's been their top player for the Patriots, along with Harry Silvis, Matthew Mullen. As we move on to Region 4, they play Huntington and the 3 and the 2. It's be an interesting matchup there, but I have seen Parkersburg South play Huntington at the Snyder Utsnack shootout, and Parkersburg South just blew them out of the water right from the get-go. So, but from what I heard from Navi Hewitt, he had a dislocated shoulder, but he's back in action. He played in that regional game against Capital. It looks like it was a little close, but Parkersburg South did end up winning that game 71-64. And it looks like for Parkersburg, the Big Reds are going to be playing at Spring Valley, and I've already seen those two play each other at Spring Valley High School, actually, and Spring Valley knocked them off. So I have a feeling it could be Spring Valley and Parkersburg South coming out of Region 4.
Yeah, and Huntington only beat Hurricane by 2 points as well.
Yeah,
so, which was a good. I mean, that region, the seeding in that region can be all different ways. I mean, it's very top heavy, but then you get a team like Capital who has a good coach in Cookie Miller and has some decent players in David Robinson and Grant Barclay. So Park South, like I said, a little streaky. Beat Morgantown, lose to University. Go close with Capital. Anyone can beat anyone. That's why I keep saying it's just a toss up this year with the state tournament and with who the favorite is. So yeah, but yeah, I haven't gotten to see Spring Valley, the boys, yet this year. So I'm excited if they are able to move on. I think there'll be one team that I'll be most excited to see, when I get to Charleston, because I think I've seen mostly everybody else that would be down there. Maybe not South Charleston or Woodrow, but they were there last. I'm familiar with those teams. But it'd be nice to see Spring Valley down there. So. Yeah, that region also is just a tough region. All 4 in Quad A this year were really, really competitive for sure.
Yes, sir. And now we've gotten that region down. I'm going to be listing my state tournament prediction seedings in Class Quad A since we got through the regional bracket. Here's what I have for 1 through 8. What I'm predicting here for Class Quad A, and this could go either way here. And this is my opinion, and this is what I think the coaches are going to pick. But, anything can happen in these rankings, so we'll just see moving forward. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But here are my rankings here. Spring Mills at number 1, Morgantown at number 2. I have George Washington at 3. I have Spring Valley at the 4 and South Charleston at the 5. I did put University at the 6th spot. That's based on their wins over Parkersburg South. And I do have Parkersburg South as that 7th seed. And I know they're trying to. I know they knocked off Morgantown. They've played a pretty tough schedule. That could go either way. I can see Parkersburg South moving to that 6th seed as well, and University going down to 7th seed. It could happen. That could switch. But for right now, I just see it like that. As of right now, the University at 6, Parkersburg South at 7, and I had the Martinsburg Bulldogs finishing it off at number 8.
Yeah. That would be very interesting. You get an EPAC matchup in the first round, right? You get
Right.
Martinsburg Spring Mills, which would be very interesting. And for that reason, I could see. I don't know. It could really go either way. I mean, Park South could slip down to the 8. I don't know. It could. Who knows? But I agree with you as far as the University at the 6, especially
Right.
with the 2 wins over Park South.
Mm-hmm.
You would have 18 wins on the season. Parkersburg South, they just had a close game with Capital. See what happens against Huntington. See what University does against Buchanan. So tomorrow matters a lot as far as results, and you want to win, but not only want to win, you want to impress, everyone else and make sure that they give you the best seeding possible. Because like I told you before the show, everyone is chasing the 6th seed if you're going to be one of those final few seeds, because you do not. Ideally, you probably don't want to see Spring Mills or Morgantown in the first round. You want to try to get them to play a game or get them to even have someone upset them first. So who knows?
Absolutely, absolutely. Do not want to go up against Spring Mills or Morgantown in the first round of the state tournament for sure. And that just goes to show you how loaded this class is. All 1 through 8 can all compete at a really high level. So we'll just see what happens there. Moving on to Class AAA here, regional. We're just gonna go straight to the championships just for time's sake. Regional championships for Region 1 here in Class AAA. We have number 5 Brook at number 1 Fairmont Senior, and number 3 North Marion at number 2 Elkins. I will be at that North Marion Elkins matchup on Thursday. The AAA regional championships will be on Thursday.
Gotcha.
So I'll be there for that. Elkins Tigers, North Marion. I've seen North Marion. They back on New Year's Eve whenever they played Herbert Hoover. Lost on a buzzer beater by Mr. Donovan Brown. But North Marion, they're a tough team. They made it to the state tournament before as an 8 seed a few years. So this is kind of like that battle for the 8 seed here in the state tournament. North Marion is really tough. They have a lot of good guard. They have pretty good guard play, but Elkins is pretty good too. I haven't really seen them. This will be the first time I'll be back in Elkins since a few years ago, back when Corey Harper was still playing. But they have some good guys. Levi Wanless is a kid that has played at a pretty high level. He's one of those Rain kids from Coach. Shout out to Coach News at West Virginia Rain. Elkins is pretty good. They're pretty decent. And I already know that whenever they play in the state tournament a few years ago, whenever they played against Fairmont Senior in the semis, it felt like the whole city of Elkins was there for that game. And I have a feeling that it's going to be packed for that game as well. So,
yeah, I know North Marion. I watched some of the game against when they played Hoover. And Brook with the upset over East Fairmont. Brook dropping down to AAA this year. Good win for them. See if they can give Fairmont Senior a run for their money on Thursday for sure.
Absolutely. And then we got, let's see, Hampshire at Bridgeport, Lewis County at Robert C. Byrd. Now I know that Lewis County Byrd games to be pretty good. Lewis County, I know they have Ben Putnam, a really athletic forward. I mean, personally, for me, I feel like that kid needs to do it. I feel like he probably might post-grad because he has a lot of potential to be a really great player in the future. RCB does have a lot of talent. They did knock off Fairmont Senior off that buzzer beater by Junior Smith. That was like one of the biggest plays that I've seen all season long. So Bird's a competitor. Bridgeport is obviously a future number 1 seed in the state tournament if they can knock off Hampshire on Thursday. Region 3, as we're just going to move on here, we have obviously Shady Spring and Herbert Hoover and Ripley and Greenbrier East, which that's probably going to be the biggest AAA regional championship is between the Vikings and the Spartans. That should be very interesting
Yeah.
because Greenbrier East knocked off Shady Spring not long ago. And Ripley is also a good competitor as well. So they have a lot of good guard play, and obviously Shady, obviously being the defending state champs, going up against Herbert. I mean, it's going to be a tough regional championship down over there.
Yeah, the fact that Herbert Hoover is the 4 seed in that region is crazy to me because they've been one of the top 4 teams in the whole class all year in the polls. Like, in the AP poll and the coaches poll, they've been up there all year. And the fact that they're playing Shady to go to the state tournament, I mean, that's just that whole region is incredibly deep. And it, I don't want to. I hate to say it, but I think the champion might come out of that region. Honestly, I mean, who knows? You got some tough teams. Dane Hatfield obviously is playing really well. Donovan Brown you mentioned, but Shady Spring and Shady Spring at the same time. They have, Jack Williams and Kai Olson, right? So
yep, Kai Olson,
and then obviously their coach, right? So
yes, love Ronnie Olson over here.
Coach Ronnie Olson, yeah. So. But like I said, Hoover is the 4 is crazy to me. But I'll be really watching that game. I think that game, the Herbert Hoover Shady Spring game, is probably out of all the classes, the one game that out of the regionals that I think is the most must watch game for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I did want to mention that earlier as well. I mean, like you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, I mean that is a very deep region. I feel like anybody can come in out of that region, but it is Shady Spring, as you mentioned, Jack Williams, Kai Olson, and Jalen Bailey, and I mean they're really talented, and obviously Ripley and Greenbrier East could be a good matchup there too, even though I don't really know too much about Greenbrier East, but I have seen Ripley play. They did knock off Cannon Upshur. They've had some, and they kept up with Nitro, and I mean, I don't know. It could be either one of those teams. And obviously for Herbert and Shady, that is going to be the most watched region championship. I do agree with you there. And then moving on to Region 4, we got Wayne and Chapmanville and Winfield and Nitro. Now Wayne's one of those streaky teams this season. They've been hot, but they've also been cold. They've won some games that they won and they should have won. They did win, should win, but they've also played against teams where they've kept it close, but they never should have kept it close. But Wayne is pretty, they got Isaac Meddings, who is another top 3, really good shooter. But Chapmanville, already know about the legacy over at Chapmanville, won a couple of state championships with Obina and Chili Killen and Andrew Scholl, and them were still playing. And, they got Joey Galahu and I forget what that kid's name is, but he's a 6'7" forward. I have in my notes. I should have had it here. Right here. Chapmanville. Keaton Terry. Yes. Keaton Terry and Benji Atkins. I mean, those kids are really talented. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect, but Wayne Chapmanville should be pretty good too. And Nitro and Winfield. Winfield is starting to peak at the right time. And we'll just see how they do against Nitro, because Nitro is a state tournament team from last year. And just to move on here for my predictions on who I think is going to make it out of AAA 1 through 8. Again, this is my opinions and what I think and who I think is going to make it 1 through 8 here. This is just who I think what the coaches are going to decide as well. I have Bridgeport number 1. I know Shady at number 2, but that could go either way. Nitro at the number 3. I have Fairmont Senior and Chapmanville taking the 4 and the 5, with Fairmont Senior taking the 4 seed and Chapmanville in the 5 seed. I have Ripley at the 6, Robert Seabird at the 7, and I have the Elkins Tigers at number 8.
Okay, I like that. I think that sounds pretty good. That tournament. I think the AAA class is one of the deepest tournaments. I mean, 1 through 8, you can choose a winner. I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath watching those teams play each other for sure.
Absolutely. All righty. And just moving on to Class AA, Region 1, we have Tyler Consolidated, Williamstown, Ravenswood, Wheeling Central Catholic. Whenever I saw Ravenswood, Wheeling Central Catholic, I was like, do we get Eli Sankum and the Maroon Knights, or do we get Coach Mick Price and Ravenswood? And,
Mm.
I love when Rick Price and Ravenswood comes to Charleston because you expect them to be there because of the historic career that Mick Price has had over there in Ravenswood, West Virginia. He's like the Rick Pitino of coaches in the state of West Virginia, in my opinion. He's just that guy. And I don't know. I mean, obviously I have Wheeling Central. Obviously, is one of my favorites to win, but who knows? It's March, and I expect Mick Price and Ravenswood to put up a fight.
Yeah, Wheeling Central is another team like Spring Valley. I said I'm just really excited to be able to see if they make it to Charleston. Last year they played pretty well, came up just short, but I think Williamstown and Wheeling Central will definitely move on in that region for sure. It's Double A is a little more top heavy in this year, but and those teams have beaten a lot of good teams this year as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Wheeling Central, like I've already mentioned, Eli Sankum, which I don't know. I don't think I've even mentioned this publicly about Eli, but I believe, in my personal opinion, that he is the best player in the state. There's just no question. I mean, he's obviously has like some Division I interests from schools. I remember his assistant coaches told me that that he went down to Northern Iowa for a visit over there, which is one of the top mid-major programs in the country. And obviously he plays for West Virginia Gold, which is a Division I circuit. For playing for the Pro 16 circuit, it's a Puma circuit. So he's been doing really, really good, and I really hope that Wheeling Central can make a run. Moving on to Region 2, Liberty Harrison at Doddridge County, which I'll be in attendance for that game since I was at the Liberty Harrison Petersburg matchup, which was Liberty Harrison's last home basketball game as a school before they consolidate with Robert C. Byrd next year. It was awesome being there, getting to see all the fans and all the support from them. And I really hope that Coach Zach Bart and Liberty can get a run in Charleston. I would love to see that happen for the school's sake. But they are going to have to match up against Doddridge County, who's a state tournament team from last year.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a lot of talented guys like Landon Thomas and Gerard Trent. So it is going to be very, very tough to deal with the Bulldogs, who are, in my opinion, also could be a state semifinal team in AA as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to jump ahead, but man, I can't wait to watch that Logan and Charleston Catholic matchup over on Region 4. So,
oh yeah, Logan and Charleston Catholic.
I don't
Oh
want to jump
yeah.
ahead. I don't mean to jump ahead, but that's going to be fun. But I mean, this is another class that the regions get deep when you get to these lower classes. You get a lot more teams playing. The Quad A teams, their regions. Some teams, some regions only have 6 teams in them. You get down to this AA and single A classes and regions, and you have a lot more teams you got to play through and a lot more games you got to win. So these classes, these lower classes will be, by the time they get to the state tournament, these teams will be tested. They'll have their hands dirty already. They'll be ready to play come Charleston if they are able to make it.
Oh yeah, and let's talk about Bluefield, a team that has only won 2 games this year, that knocked off James Monroe, and who was I think they were the number 3 seed in that region. And it was most likely going to be either West Side, Wyoming East, or James Monroe. Could be either one of them. But James Monroe lost to Bluefield in the regional semis, and that was probably like that's probably the biggest upset that we've seen in March so far. But as I've mentioned, I texted a few people about this before. Coach Buster Large, he was there in spirit for sure, seeing that. I mean, wow, that was just unbelievable. And, but never sleep on the Bluefield Beavers. Never sleep on the Bluefield Beavers. 2 wins, 20 wins, whatever. You never sleep on Bluefield.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then They lost a late great coach recently as well, right? So maybe the spirit of him was also there with
Right.
Bluefield, like that, like the Liberty Harrison coach was too. So yeah, never sleep on the Beavers. They won a title just a few years ago, right? So they're a program. You can't sleep on anybody who's an established program in the sport.
Yes, sir. And we wish our respects to the Lars family and R.I.P. Buster Lars. He was one of the best coaches in the state. I didn't really know him personally, but I knew he meant well to the people that he knew in the Bluefield community. We're with you on that, and just and we would, and we already know Bluefield Athletics is still going to be thriving. So yeah, Bluefield and Wyoming East. That's gonna be. Now I'm already looking forward to that game too. That's gonna be a big regional game along with West Side and Midland Trail. And region and this. Let's see here. That's happening on Wednesday, right? Yeah, and then obviously, as you mentioned, Charleston Catholic Logan. That should be a really big regional championship along with Buffalo and Scott. In that other regional co-final there. I think that's going to do it with Class AA regionals and my predicted seedings for AA for 1 through 8. I have Williamstown at the 1, Wheeling Central at number 2. I do have Wyoming East at number 3 just because they knocked off Logan twice in the regular season. I do have Logan at number 4, honestly, and Westside at number 5. But it could go either way with these 3 teams. I mean, I honestly don't know what to expect there. West Side, I think they do have the better record. But I don't know. It's going to be tough to tell. I mean, like these teams in AA, it's always a dogfight every year. So, but this is just what I was going with on the top of my head whenever I did these. Wyoming East, Logan, West Side, obviously being the 3, 4, and 5. I have Doddridge County as a 6. I have Ritchie County as the 7th seed, and I have Scott at number 8.
Yeah. The one thing about AA in a lot of these regions that I noticed is like a lot of the teams that you typically see at the state tournament aren't the teams that are going to be coming out of the region this year. Like especially West Side having the 1. Usually it's Bluefield, James Monroe, or Wyoming East, one of those 3 teams coming out. But this year, the whole top half of that bracket is West Side, Midland Trail, and then the other 2 teams. Like that's a big deal for that class in that region. I think to see how deep it's getting, and how much tougher it's getting to get to Charleston.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it is going to be tough. I mean, AA is usually a dogfight every year. We've seen it. I mean, we just don't know who like the clear favorite's going to be. It's like it was like that past 2 years. Like we didn't really expect Chapmanville, who was like a 4 seed or 5 seed 2 years ago, to win the championship, and then Charleston Catholic. They were like a 2 seed, but I mean, Bluefield was the other best team in that bracket. But Charleston Catholic ended up pulling off the win, and congrats, and obviously the big congrats to young coach Hunter Moles during that time, winning a state championship for that program. So, yeah, it's AA is gonna be tough. We don't know what to expect in AA, but it's gonna be huge. It's definitely gonna be a big tournament there in AA. Moving on to single A, I don't really know any big regional games in single A actually. Tigers Valley and East Hardy should be interesting. I don't really like in single A. I hardly even really see. Obviously, I watch these teams through film. The only single A teams that I've seen are the favorites, and that's Tug Valley and Tucker County. I actually did get to see Greater Beckley Christian play at the Bridgeport tournament against Lewis County. They actually won a very close contest with them. East Hardy, I know they're really streaky. They love to shoot it from the outside. Huntington St. Joe's, they're a team that's been to the state tournament for the past few years. They're pretty young. They're pretty solid. Clay Battelle, obviously you cover Clay Battelle very well. I'm sure you'll probably talk about them. Magnolia Dave Tallman Sr. and the Magnolia Golden Eagles. I have a feeling they might make it to the tournament this year. And then that 8th seed, I have either Webster County or Montcalm, and I haven't seen either one. So, but I think it's most likely going to be Tug Valley and Tucker County at that 1 and 2 spot. I had GBC at number 3, East Hardy at 4, Huntington St. Joe's at 5. I do have Clay Patel at 6, but it could go either way. I can see him going either 6, 5, or 4. It could be either one. I mean, Clay Patel is pretty talented.
Yeah, they are, and they've won. They're on a good streak right now as well. I don't know. I could see them as high as 3, maybe. I don't know. It's gonna be tough. But this, like you said, the top 2 teams, Tucker and Tug Valley, they are definitely running away with the class. I would say. I think Clay Patel are good enough to be a semifinal team. I've seen East Hardy this year as well. Like you said, they love to shoot the ball, and they do it well, and they run good offense, and they're good on defense too. So, but that matchup, like you said, Tigers Valley, that's a top 10 matchup in the class and in the regional. So that'll be really interesting. Other than that, St. Joe's and Wahama. I mean, watch out for that one. Wahama's a really good team. They've won a lot of games this year. They could end up pulling that game out for sure. I think Valley got knocked off by Wood County Christian, so Magnolia will enjoy that. I'm sure that'll be, like you said, Dave Tallman Sr. They should be back in Charleston after a few years hiatus, so they'll enjoy that. And then Clay Patel's playing Parkersburg Catholic, who knocked off Notre Dame by 20 points. It was like 60-40. Park Catholic only have seven wins this year, so that was an interesting result. But Clay Patel, they'll have to battle. I don't think these teams have met this year. They'll play on Wednesday night out in Blacksville. Preston Luzader averaging 23 points and nearly 14 rebounds this year. Probably first team All State for Class Single A, I would say. But they have some guards that can also shoot. They play good defense. The one thing is that we're gonna have to stay out of foul trouble. They don't really have that much of a bench. Too deep of a bench. They do have a couple of players that can come off and give them minutes, but their starters are just on a different level. And as long as their starters can stay in, they should have a good chance against anybody. Their guards rebound the ball really well. I mean, their point guard averages like 7 rebounds a game. So if they can hit the boards and knock down some outside shots, I think Preston Luzader is, good enough of an inside player to where you know what you're going to get from him. So it really matters about guard play. In college basketball, they say what wins games in March, and in the NCAA tournament, it's your guards. But so that's kind of the same situation here in high school basketball. Is when you get to the postseason, when you get to Charleston, your guards are really going to be who dictates what happens to your team. So I think if the Clay Patel guards can get going and knock down some shots early, Josiah Morgan and Cooper Payton is actually averaging double figures as well this year. So if they can get their offense going early, they'll be tough for anybody to beat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I did have him mentioned here on my impact players list, along with Preston Luzader and Josiah Morgan, as you mentioned there. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I feel like Clay Patel could be in that semifinal contention. They were a couple of years ago. I have a feeling they can do the same again. But if they are predicted as the 6th seed, they are most likely going to play against Greater Beckley Christian in the 3. But like I said, it could go either way. They could be either the 4 or the 5. So it is all and out possible that it could be in that 4 and that 5 spot. We'll just have to see what happens there. And then I have Magnolia as the 7th seed, and I have Webster County as the 8th. Because I know about Webster County. I don't know about Montcalm, but I do know Montcalm has a better record than Webster County. But Webster County has been in the tournament before. They won a state championship back, and obviously I was just watching the highlights of this just last night of Webster County knocking off Parkersburg Catholic in that undefeated season where the whole city of Upper Glade was at the Charleston Coliseum and Convention Center that year. So it was a very big deal for that school. And Brett Morris, who took over for Coach Michael Gray, who was a former assistant at Glenville State. I do wish him the best this postseason and wish him the best against Montcalm on Wednesday. But that's what I have for my preview or predictions for regionals and for the state tournament. Like I mentioned before, if you want to look at the list, just go to bluechipsnation.com, and I'll be also once the regional championships are all done and the state tournament seeds are in, I will be doing a full preview of the state tournament the day before the state tournament begins. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. But yeah, I think that is going to wrap things up. But I'm going to be, like we mentioned before, I'm going to be at Morgantown High School Preston tomorrow. Mr. Michael Griffith will give you live updates of the University of Buchanan Upshur game tomorrow night.
If I
And
can get
once
my
this,
cell phone to work.
oh yeah, absolutely, you got to get through the University High School gymnasium service, But like I said, we'll keep you guys updated as best we can on the state tournament seedings. And so yeah, the state tournament seedings are going to be out. The full state tournament seedings will be out at the end of Thursday's AAA regional competition. But like I said, I cannot wait. I mean, this is the best time of the year. It's March Madness. We have college basketball March Madness going on the same week as well. So should be interesting.
Yep, and don't forget the girls' tournament starts tomorrow, 9:30 in the morning. It's got a good game to start out. Charleston Catholic with Logan. That's going to be an incredible crowd at 9:30 in the morning. Both teams.
Oh yeah.
Both girls' teams will bring a huge crowd to that game. So be looking out for the girls too this season.
Oh yes, sir, absolutely. But like I said, we'll keep you guys posted. I'll try to see if I can do a podcast here or there beforehand, but if not, I will definitely be doing a recap of the state tournaments for both the girls and the boys. Once the state tournament is officially done over with, and try to see what we can predict for next season. But obviously that'll be too early to tell, so who knows? But like I said, I'll keep you guys updated on my social media. Make sure you guys follow me at Ollie Reed Sports on all social media platforms. Make sure to follow Mr. Michael Griffith, because he's going to be covering the state tournament all week for these 2 weeks for the girls and the boys. I think it's Griff, right? It's at Griff on Twitter.
Yep.
Okay, so make sure you guys go follow him. And as always, guys, I'll keep you guys posted on any updates on the brackets and everything, and obviously do the previews and all that, because I know I got college coaches wanting to talk about this type of player, and because there's going to be some college scouts at the state tournament as well, so I can't wait to see what happened there. But thank you guys for tuning in. I love y'all. None of this would be possible without you guys, and for the love support that I got in the state of West Virginia. It means the world to me. Especially you, Mr. Michael, good friend of mine, and always love to have you joining the show as always.
Yeah, man, it's always fun. Keeps me up to date with everything going on around the state, because there's just so much happening. It's hard to keep up with it all. So, but yeah, it is the best time of the year, like you said. Anything can happen. Get ready.
Yes, sir. You heard the man. All right. I'll keep you guys updated. I love y'all. As always, keep on keeping on. See you guys here in a few weeks.